Yep, I'm on TV Tropes for that.
That helps.
So, hi everyone, welcome to the Semi-Bookish podcast. What are you doing?
I was trying to de-stick the back. I've been sticking stickers that I get on the back of my phone.
Oh,
Tony's trying to run away, basically.
Tony is trying to definitely run away. Anyways, hi everyone, this is Semi-Bookish podcast, Adrian District Library's podcast, one and only. We're gonna jump right into it today. Grant, what are you watching, reading, playing? Because I've gone first the last couple times, so it's not my turn.
Okay, that is
this
fair.
time. Okay.
Darn, you're keeping track.
I am keeping track. I should keep a
Someone
tally
should.
sheet. I'm gonna keep a tally sheet.
Ooh, and whoever goes first the most times next year gets a Christmas gift from the podcast.
It'd be great.
Does he always? Yeah, you do kind of go first a lot.
I always pick him first because I always stare at him first by accident.
Well, that's fair. Cool.
Yeah, okay, so I haven't watched any movies lately.
Oh!
I just haven't been in the mood. I did watch a TV show, though, at the behest of one of our coworkers.
Oh, what show is it?
Mr. Bates versus the Post Office.
I've not heard of that one.
It's a British show starring Toby Jones. Who
I love Toby Jones.
Toby Jones is great.
Yeah.
Who, if you don't know who he is, viewers, listeners, he's a diminutive British actor who's quite good. He kind of...
Wasn't he Wormtail?
Like in Lord of the Rings?
In Harry
No.
Potter?
Toby Jones.
I don't think so.
No,
He was not Wormtail.
absolutely not.
No, that was someone else. Okay.
He was in Chamber of Secrets, though, but I don't know what he did.
Yeah, but who was he? He was in one of the Harry Potter.
He's Dobby.
He's Dobby! Oh!
Dobby.
I had no idea.
Oh! I did not know he was Dobby either.
Okay, now I'm...
That's hilarious.
Now every time I look at him, I'm just gonna think Elf.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but he's...
has given Dobby a sock.
Oh, you know what? Now I can hear it. Yep, now that you said... Yeah, I can
Dobby
hear it
is
now. Yeah.
free.
Mine.
Oh.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you.
I do love Toby Jones, though.
No, he's great. He's great in that movie where he plays Truman Capote. I don't know if you've seen that.
Ooh, I've not seen that one. Is that the one with Philip Seymour Hoffman in it as well?
No, it's
that's
funny
right.
you bring that up, though, because they both came out the exact same year, right around the exact same time, and the one with Toby Jones was definitely overshadowed, which, the other one's a great movie as well.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
But anyways, this one, so it's a true story.
This show that you watched.
Yes, the show. It takes place in Britain. It's, long story short, there's kind of a electronic mishap among the post office system of Britain, which is very different from ours, I gather.
Sure.
And anyways, so long story short, people lost a lot of money. A lot of people ended up killing themselves. And then Toby Jones is kind of one of these. It's kind of one of the people that stands up and tries to, kind of bring awareness to this whole thing, and kind of a cover up that the British Post Office did or whatever. So it's a fun little show. It's not long. It's more it's a British show.
Like a limited series almost. That's fun.
So that was good. I'm meaning to read The Repeat Room by Jesse Ball. However, I keep putting it off because other books I want to read keep coming in. So, right now I'm reading in preparation for the next. I think it's the next episode. Is my birthday episode the next episode?
I think so.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is it the 2001 Space Odyssey?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Yes, it is. Okay. Yay! I'm reading a just kind of an analysis of Stanley Kubrick's filmography and stuff.
Oh, cool.
Of course you are.
Well, yeah, I just want to see if there's anything that I didn't know about or just something that I might find pertinent to bring up.
Is it a nonfiction read you might recommend in the near future?
Ooh, probably not.
Okay.
Just because it's... he likes to get into the technical stuff. I don't know how fun that would be. But, no, it's interesting, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, that's what I'm doing right now. Aaron.
Yeah?
Your turn.
Okay.
Oh, how the turns have tabled.
First of all, books I'm reading. I'm halfway through Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner.
Oh, how is that?
Technically, it was the book club for Book Dragons pick. I never thought for once in my life, I would like a historical fiction, but here we are.
Yeah.
The story premise behind Lost Apothecary is it's a dual timeline. So that's, typical for... That is a trope for historical fiction, is there's two timelines going on at once.
True.
So timeline 1 follows Caroline. Caroline has just been... I don't know how I want to explain this correctly, but spoiler alert for people who aren't going to read it. But she has been cheated on by her husband. And so, they've been in a thing for, 10 years. She gave up her history degree to go... Well, she got the degree, but she gave up her master's to work on the family farm. So she's kind of just, about everything.
Sure.
Her husband cheats on her with one of his assistants at a work party or something.
Oh.
She finds out about it because she sees her husband's phone, and the lady sent a picture of her underwear to him. It's a whole... So, yeah.
That would do it.
So, they're supposed to be going on an anniversary trip to London, and so she says, you can stay home, and she goes by herself.
Nice.
She possibly also may or may not be pregnant and not entirely sure about it just yet.
Oh.
So we're throwing that also into the mix.
She's got a lot going on.
She does have a lot going on. While she's in London, she comes across this hobby called mud raking.
Yeah.
And it's basically where people go along the River Thames, and then they go find little things that are just trinkets or something that are washed up along the river, and see if maybe they're worth something or if they're old or something like that. And she finds this little apothecary bottle, a little potion bottle, and the potion bottle has a bear on it, but no identifying anything outside of the bear on the bottle. And so that brings us into timeline 2, where it's following a woman named Nella. And Nella runs said apothecary that exists.
Gotcha.
And her entire thing is, her apothecary is for women who have been hurt by their husbands, and she makes poisons to kill them.
Brilliant.
So, bringing that both together, by the way.
Oh,
it's a very niche business.
No, yeah. And so then there's this 12-year-old girl named Eliza who who got a poison for her mistress to kill her husband, and is slowly becoming this little apprentice to Nella. So there's 3 points of view going on at once.
Right.
We have Eliza, Nella, and Caroline.
That's
and
fun.
Caroline's kind of slowly coming back into herself because she's throwing herself with her history degree into researching this bottle and finding out where it is. So she's going to the British Library, making friends with people, and learning about it. And so she's coming back into her own. Meanwhile, her husband decides, oh yeah, we're also going to go on the trip. So he decides to come along. 3 days later, she doesn't want him anywhere near. And so she's just I hate this. And so she ignores him most of the time. It's great.
Nice.
And so it's kind of the duel between the two of them, as Nella, who is quite literally being almost persecuted or looked for at the moment because one of her poisons goes wrong. Kills somebody else, and it's a whole entire thing.
Yeah.
But so she's trying to put herself into hiding and protect herself, while Caroline is trying to come back into her own and decide what she wants to do.
Yeah.
So it's really nice. I'm also reading Fourth Wing.
Oh, you haven't finished yet?
No, I'm halfway through because I had to start reading Lost Apothecary.
Gotcha. Okay.
I will say that I hated it at first because yeah, I know they're supposed to be 20, but this really reads like it should be just in YA.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there's smut in it later, but to be honest, it just really reads like it should have just been thrown in YA.
Yeah.
And I know that she's, more of a romance writer than a fantasy writer, and it shows. It shows. The amount of pages I really should have just skipped because nothing is happening.
Oh, it's one of those. Okay.
And the dragons are kind of the saving grace of the whole entire thing because they turn around and they're super sassy and they can talk in the person's head.
Sure.
It's kind of like a little mental connection.
Yeah.
And it's the most hilarious thing because this dragon does not care about this woman's mortal woes at all.
Well.
Does not care. It's sitting here the whole entire time just going, yeah, and? Yeah, and? Dude, she's turning around, she's like, I have ED, she basically has EDS. So she's Ehlers-Danlos. So it's where like
Oh.
her joints are super hyper flexible and she can like immediately like disconnect them at any point.
Oh.
Like she's easily injured, those kind of things.
Sure.
What's that old doll where you can stretch out the arms? Stretch Armstrong, yeah. So it's like
I was
that.
gonna say
except,
Betty Spaghetti.
It's like that, except it's not fun. It's
No, and so she's on this big dragon and he's flying and he's doing all these like different things because he's supposed to be a military dragon because she's supposed to fight in the military.
Yeah.
And she's like, stop doing this, I'm gonna fall off. And he's like, I literally don't care, get better. It's so great.
That's funny.
So, you know, the dragons kind of save it.
Okay.
Meanwhile, I'm not playing Sims, I'm playing Sunhaven, which is farm game a la Stardew Valley, but I think it's better.
Right.
Sunhaven is following your character as they are, you know, they're a farmer. But there is a sub-story going on where there's a darkness coming from the monster city. And so you have to somehow get blessings from all the dragons to try to go figure out what's going on in the monster city.
Sure.
And I have beaten that portion. You have to make altars to go to the dragon to talk to him, so he'll be nice and get rid of all the darkness, which is nice.
Yeah.
It's great. However, I'm currently, because you can marry characters in the game, I'm currently in this whole entire thing with a character that I didn't think I would be in a thing for, which is this cat man who has this storyline where he's come from a land far away, where there's an empress who's basically become a dictator and killed his family, and so he's come to try to find different blessings. He's been on this journey for like a year, by the way.
Oh.
Different blessings that would help him go back and get revenge on his family because he's really a strict honor-bound code. Because it's from like a Japanese kind of like perspective for him.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And he doesn't get it. He gets really mad. He tries to leave. You try to stop him. He has this sword, and the sword, if anybody's watched Inuyasha, they know the trope that's coming with this, is he has this sword, and the sword is supposed to fail him when he needs it the most. And so he tries to cut you out of the way with the sword, and the sword breaks in half.
Interesting.
And so, you know, I've been in this whole entire little storyline with him for a hot minute, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm so invested with this little pixels.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Nice.
Tony, it's your turn.
Okay, I will start with what I watched over the weekend, because I want... This is a content warning. Don't watch it. That is the content warning. So I went to see Gladiator 2 on Saturday. It was awful. It was... Okay, so I can't say that it was the worst movie that Ridley Scott has directed, because that always goes to Exodus, Gods and Kings forever, eternally. But if he ever gets this close to that territory ever again...
Wait.
By the way, he got there with Gladiator 2. Ridley Scott. Yeah, so like for me, it's like bottom of the rung for his films is Exodus, Gods and Kings, and then right there, or just a skosh above it, would be Gladiator 2. That's how bad it was. It was also so bad that Denzel Washington looked like a doddering old man. That's not his character, by the way. His character is supposed to be an ex-slave who is now a villain to take down the Roman Empire. Which, by the way, sounds great, right? Especially when you cast Denzel Washington as that guy, right? Nope. Nope. Doesn't save it. Not in the slightest. It only makes things worse. Because you don't really put that together. Like, you kind of know there's something going on, right? Yeah. You know not to trust him, right? Yeah. 75% through the film, you finally understand why Denzel Washington keeps messing around with these really nice costumes that he's been put in.
Like fiddling with physically?
Yeah, it's obvious. Like, the first time you see it, you're like, okay, was that just a bad take? But every time he enters the scene, any scene, he's literally physically fidgeting with these incredible robes that were made by Oscar award-winning Janty Yates. She's like, she did all of the Star Wars prequels. Like, she's huge, big deal in the costume design Hollywood arena, particularly for costume pieces like Gladiator 2. Yeah. So the costumes look great, but to watch the guy who is literally, in my opinion, the best actor to come out of anything in America, anyway.
He's up there.
To just be like messing around. I know it's Philip Seymour Hoffman's dead. Sorry.
Don't remind me.
Yeah. But to watch that guy, right? Fidgeting the whole movie
is annoying.
awful. And then you find out why 75% through the movie, and you're like, so you fidgeted with your clothes because you're a villain who can't figure out that wealthy people don't fidget with their clothes? What? Like,
That's it?
That's it. And he doesn't say, oh, I'm fidgeting with my clothes for these reasons. But once he reveals himself, his plan, you go, because he doesn't fidget with his clothes anymore, by the way. For the rest of the film, he doesn't fidget with them.
I've noticed something in recent films where an actor will almost go through a checklist of like where I need a physical quirk, like to make my character stand out. I need blah 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 blah, and I feel like maybe that's Denzel's thing for that role. Like he's just going through the motions almost.
It feels very much like.
That just sounds like blah and bland. Like why?
But the dialogue, honestly, like I'm willing to give Denzel grace because I've literally never seen him ever done anything poor. I've seen bad movies that he was in just because he was in them and he was great because he's Denzel. So I'm willing to cut him some slack. Right. The dialogue in this movie is worse than, and I'm going to quote another really poorly written film, dialogue-wise. The dialogue in Gladiator 2 is worse than Anakin, You're Breaking My Heart. I wish I was joking or being hyperbolic, but I'm not. It's really
Listen, all I've seen on my For You page on TikTok, like, because you know Gladiator 2 is supposed to be big, I've seen absolutely nothing.
Well, no, that's because Wicked has taken over.
Well, yeah, because of Wicked.
Wicked is
but,
everywhere.
Like, all I've seen of Gladiator 2 is just interviews of Joseph Quinn. That's it.
Here's my thing. I think the only thing that it's going to do, because Pedro Pascal is a waste in that film, there's no reason for him to be in there because his character adds nothing to the plot, takes away nothing from the plot when he is gone.
He's just a big name to get people into the seats.
Literally. So the only thing... But George, don't get me started. Do not get me started. So...
Yeah, but Pedro Pascal has been on TikTok.
I know.
So therefore, people just
younger,
need to put it... Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
That's
the
it.
only thing that this film will do that I consider a boon is it will put Paul Mescal in the let's dress him up in super tight clothes because he has muscles category. I'm not mad at that as a, person attracted to beautiful men.
You're not
I'm okay
wrong.
with that. Like, it's fine.
I'm also okay
Make
with that.
him a Marvel superhero. Make him a DC super... I don't care where you put him. Just put him in an action film and make sure that, some awful explosion means that half of his wardrobe has been discarded and he has to obligatorily shower or something stupid, The kinds of things
It's very important to the plot.
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, why else watch an action movie? Anyway,
Anyways.
So that's Gladiator 2. That's what I've watched.
Okay.
Don't watch it. It's terrible.
Good to know.
I am...
Wasn't planning on it.
Oh, good. Yeah, no. What am I listening to right now? I'm not. Oh, I've been playing. Sorry. I've been playing Hades. Which is...
And how's that?
I love it. It's so good. The thing that I find interesting is that, like, this was the 2020, like... one of the 2020 games that got people through 2020. That's all I had ever heard about it before I finally decided to try it a month ago, 2 weeks ago. I don't know. Anyway. To me, I feel like I've bought it and played it at the right time because I'm like, I need to get through the next 4 years. So, ding! So there's Hades. And then I am reading two different things. One is a middle grade fantasy called Jax Freeman and the Phantom Shriek by Kwame Mbalia. Ooh, I really almost forgot his name. Really, really good, really interesting about a kid who moves from North Carolina to Chicago to stay with his grandmother and his Uncle Mo, only to discover when he gets to the train station that not only have his bags been relocated and possibly lost forever, but odd things keep happening at this train station, like, bizarre, like belt buckles keep talking to him.
That is odd.
Such like things like that. And then the initial chapter ends with him getting literally attacked by this man who keeps telling him that he's going to shred his skin and wear it like a coat. Because, of course, the man is not really a man. He has to be a monster, right? So, yeah, that's how this middle grade fantasy starts. It's great. It is such a fun time. It is everything that Harry Potter should have been, but couldn't have been because she just didn't have the chops Kwame has the chops. It's amazing. I love it. It's so good. The other book I'm reading is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna, which is a YA fantasy.
Yep.
I still don't know how I feel entirely about it. I think that she's a clumsy writer as a debut, but it's a debut novel, so I understand some of the, like, small, clumsy statements could probably vanish from the next two books. The other thing that I find that I'm having to wrestle with, but I don't know that this will necessarily be a problem with, for other people, it is literally, like, point by point, a classic standard fantasy. The only difference is that it's about a black girl and it has a lot of Western African mythology all over the place. So you got really cool creatures, you got a really, like, but even down to, like, she's a farm girl. Like it's like that classic. Like, I'm talking about, like, 1970s fantasy where, you know, every kid is a farm boy about to go on a big fancy adventure, whatever. So, you know, if you're okay with your tropes being really tropey, actually, I'm kind of glad I ended on this one, then that's fine. I have a particular distaste for these particular tropes in fantasy, so it's harder for me to appreciate them, but I am hopeful that the rest of the book will prove to open that up a little bit more, because my favorite part of that particular classic fantasy thing is once they get to the place where the adventure is going to happen, because then stuff starts to happen. So we will see. I will update people. Speaking of tropes being tropey.
So I have this, like, little bowl. And the bowl has a whole bunch of tropes. Today was supposed to technically be NaNoWriMo and we're going to make plots. But, you know, a lot of stuff happens. And so I was like, hey, we should just, like, try to define some of these tropes and just, like, when you're writing, like, novels and stuff, like, we see a lot of tropes in them. Like, when we see media, we see a lot of tropes in them. It's just, like, kind of like a thing.
Yes.
And marketing is really leaning heavily into tropes right now.
So do you have a dictionary definition of the word trope that we could
Oh, do you want me to actually define it?
Yeah. Because, you know, we use that all the time, but...
So, a trope is, according to, you know, Google, thanks, it is a figurative or metaphorical use of a word or expression, but I like this one better, which is a significant or reoccurrent theme or a motif.
Ah, yes.
That one fits it a little bit better. It's basically, in the nicest example, is something that is, like, you see this in a lot of different, like, types of media, and it's, like, a similar theme or reoccurring thing in everything.
Yeah.
So it's a very broad term.
It is very broad
because it can be a recurring event. It can be a recurring type of setting, type of character.
So one of the ones that I didn't pick for this, and that's just because I was like, why would I put this here when we just already know what it is? But, like, for example, if you're in historical fiction, one of the main tropes of historical fiction is war. Like, literally, like,
That's
half of the books in
funny.
historical fiction have to do with a world war or a war in some way, shape, or form.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because one of the original, not just historical fictions, but one of the original historical fiction writers, like when we first began to use that term applied to novels, is the guy who wrote Ivanhoe. And Ivanhoe, if I'm not mistaken, is about a soldier?
I think so. Somebody just donated a copy of it.
Yeah, it's like...
The Walter Scott,
yeah. Walter Scott's novels are adventure...
Scott.
Yeah, they're supposed to be historical adventures.
a Saxon knight who supports the Norman king
Bingo!
in his struggle against his brother.
Bingo!
So it's
even
about a war.
Rob
It's
Roy,
right there.
he also wrote Rob Roy, which is a movie that Liam Neeson was in, which was all about warfare. So, you know, this has been baked into historical fiction, I guess.
Everywhere.
Yeah,
it is kind of ridiculous.
That's...
So, like, you know, there's that. Another one that you would see as a common trope is, so, for example, damsel in distress. Not very much as used much today in terms of women writing, because they're just like, dude, I can do whatever I want. But, like, damsel in distress was a big trope.
Oh, shit.
In fact, we see kind of like a turning on its head bit with this, with Hercules, the Disney movie, where, Meg quite literally looks at Hercules and goes, I'm not a damsel in distress, leave me alone. Like, it's like a whole thing.
Yeah.
Where, you save the woman and you get the girl at the end of the day because you saved her and it's a thing. Go get your princess, she's in the next castle.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
And so I have a whole bunch. I don't think we'll get through all of these today because I wrote a little bit too many. But
okay, so what's the game so that the listeners know what we're doing?
So I'm
choose.
just gonna pick one and then I'm gonna throw it at somebody and then they can read it out loud and then we will try to define it all together as a team.
Okay, cool. Okay, sure.
Because I think that'd be funny.
Sure.
I don't know what I picked.
I don't either. Oh, nice. Enemies to lovers.
Also, if you can't read my handwriting, let me know and I'll read it for you.
So enemies to lovers is a trope most common associated with the romance genre. Family of genres.
Yeah.
That is what I'm going to call them because romance is massive. And enemies to lovers basically means you're H1 and H2, so that's the term that we use for the two romantic heroes because gender is not necessary in terms of who your heroes are because anyone can fall in love. Hey, guess anyway, don't get me started. So H1 and H2, you did say this was going to be funny, so here we go. H1 and H2 are hero 1 and hero 2, and both of those characters are. At the beginning of the book, it is stated expressly, these two people have some reason to hate each other. Not dislike, not disapprove of, not think, I might, do some inappropriate things behind a grocery store or in a parking lot with this person. Like maybe, but at the end of the day, even if you were to, you hate this person and this person hates you. It's the only thing you have in common at the beginning of the book. That's the whole point of enemies to lovers. And of course, by the end, in order to create a happily ever after or happily for now, they have to fall in love, and we have to see that happen over the course of the book. I'm trying to think of a really good example of enemies to lovers, honestly, that I know of, and there has to be one at least. Okay, I'm gonna use this as an example.
Oh no, I'm
only gonna use the movie. So Red, White, and Royal Blue, the movie, because I have not yet read the book. They start out, the prince and the president's son start out they hate each other. Like, they have all these reasons. Before they even meet on screen for the first time, they're already talking smack about each other. So they have this strong distaste for one another that then they have to, because the next trope that is deployed is forced proximity, which I won't go into, but...
It's in here somewhere.
Okay, yeah, so that's a good one, where they start out with complete, absolute, utter distaste
They're
for each
singing
other.
loathing at each other, and it's, the whole thing.
Yeah, there's...
The thing that I will note the most of, though, is I have another trope in here that's very similar to enemies to lovers, but it's not enemies to lovers, because there's a difference, and I don't think a lot of people get the difference.
I think I know which one.
I know you think, but if we don't get there today, I'll mention it.
Okay,
But
yeah.
I don't know what it is. He might get it. If he does, I'm going to cry.
Okay. Artificial intelligence. It's a word we hear a lot nowadays. In the context of fiction, it's usually a robot or a computer program or something that has achieved sentience, so can think, can imbue things with meaning like a human, can talk with humans, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Do you know do you have any examples of that?
Well,
no? Yes?
Yes,
Maybe?
yes.
I don't know. Do you?
Yes. Hell 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey is kind of the...
Is he an AI?
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's kind of the default one I would go to.
Yeah. It's interesting because sometimes, I'm just gonna sort of identify how cool tropes can be if you use them in different ways. So, for example, artificial intelligence, in both Black Panther films, you have an AI that, especially in the second one, is a part of the story and becomes a part of the plot. But AI isn't the point of the story at all. Whereas if you look at a movie like AI, artificial intelligence, that's the entire point of the film. It's like, what if Pinocchio, not being a real boy, was an artificially intelligent, like it was a part of that artificial intelligence conversation. So it's interesting to see like how different tropes handle different, like if you just take it and use it not as a trope, but you're still using it, you know, would both of those movies be different without the AI? Maybe.
See, my example was going to be GLaDOS from Portal.
Yeah.
She's in there, and she's basically forcing your character to go through all these different trials and everything. And so, like, she's a really good example, especially of, like, AI gone wrong kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or, you know, that is also a common trope, too, is AI gone wrong, where, like, they take over, and
I mean,
somebody pick one out for me.
Phoning iRobot.
Yeah, I was just going to say that.
Asimov would like to speak to you. Oh, sorry. I was trying to be cute and throw it, and it didn't work.
Oh, why did I put character development as one? But anyways, you know, that is a trope, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. It was listed in TV tropes. It was like the weirdest thing ever. And I was like, hello? Character development as a trope where your character has to go through something to change their personality or how they grow.
And it is, like, you do see things without character development. So.
Yeah. No, that's a fair point. And it actually,
Yeah. No, because you have characters that are super flat, and that's their whole entire personality. But, for example, I'm going to go with the MCU version of Tony Stark because comic book Tony Stark does not go through this character development. But, like, MCU Tony Stark goes through this whole entire thing where he takes on Peter as, like, a whole entire mentor. Or, like, he becomes the mentor for him. And he goes through this growth where everything that he's doing as we lead up to Endgame is he's... like going, I care about this kid, which means now I care about the universe. We need to save everybody. When before he was just like, I only give a crap about me.
Yeah, he had to like
care about me.
Yeah,
like that's his whole entire thing.
Yeah.
We have, you know, technically Bruce Wayne goes through character development because, you know, how would we
depending on who's helping him, like who's telling this, like, because like I was actually going to use him as an example. So one of the things that is frequently particularly in the 2000s, like one of the things that's frequently thrown around about Batman from traditionally, or not traditionally, it usually is coming from people who haven't encountered a lot of Batman that isn't like a movie or an animated thing. But honestly, it's a common touch point for Batman, which is like, oh, if Batman went to therapy, there would be no Batman. So that's why he never goes to therapy, right? Like that's a kind of a running gag at this point. However, what was fascinating about the most recent animated Batman thing that...
I know what you're talking about.
Yes, I can hear the theme song and I'm completely forgetting what it's called.
Brave and Bold or something?
No, not that one.
Oh, what is it?
The Batman... It's on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Season 2 has been approved, which I really like. But anyway,
nice.
So one of the things I really liked about that is there's a point at which Bruce Wayne has to punch his way out of a fight because he can't go to become Batman like he needs to in the moment. I think it's at the Iceberg Lounge or something. So he punches his way out of a fight, you know, because Bruce Wayne is Batman, he can do that. The problem is that the way he does it and where he does it is considered by everybody there, including the police, unhinged. So they assign him to go to therapy. Guess who his doctor is?
Harley Quinn.
Yeah, Dr. Harleen Quinzel. Yeah, who by this point, you know, if you know Batman, you're like, but we haven't seen her do anything at this point, so we're just like, what? And it's so uncommon, and it does shift his character just a bit in that series because he has to. Bruce Wayne can't just go punching people anymore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he has to be more careful. He has to be. So it's interesting to watch people play around with character development.
Oh, did you just like catch that?
Almost. Can I say one last thing about character development?
Yeah,
I found this very interesting. So yesterday, I was watching this YouTube video by a young YouTuber who, you know, has read a lot, but isn't used to thinking about the things he's read a lot, despite having a YouTube channel. Don't get me started. Anyway, he did raise an interesting point about the difference between what he considered classic fantasy and modern fantasy, and I will use two examples. One will be Lord of the Rings, one will be Harry Potter, just because they're the two that so many people know. So with Lord of the Rings, you have flat characters, but subtle themes. Mm-hmm. You know, like subtle in the sense that he's not going to tell you this is about evil and darkness and war, but you get the point after a while, right? Whereas with Harry Potter, everything that happens because the characters need to develop. That's why they're children. That's why they go to a school. That's why all of it is built around developing these characters so that they can become adult wizards. That's the whole point, right?
I think it's really interesting, like, how when we talk about character development, like, as a trope in general, you have your blatantly obvious character developments, but then you have the subtle character developments. I tend to like it more subtle, because it's just, if it's there and you just, especially, like, visual media.
Oh, certainly, yeah.
It's so nice to see it subtly, how it occurs, and you're like, ah!
Yeah. I just thought it was interesting how, like, the more modern takes on, like, plot-heavy stories tend to focus on character development, and that's where your plot comes from. Whereas back in the day, it was develop the plot, here's the techniques by which you do that, 3-act structure, all of those things, which are tropes in and of themselves, and then you plug in archetypes to see if those archetypes fit with this 3-act structure or whatever you're doing. So it's just a completely different way of looking at things, and I think character development is a fun one.
Well, what's in your hand?
All right, what's in my hand?
I don't even know what's in my hand, because I forgot half of the ones I wrote.
Ooh, body switching.
So Freaky Friday.
Yeah, exactly. Freaky Friday. Yeah, I love a good body switching plot. Yeah, I love a good body switching plot. I'm trying to think of one that I actually, like, approve of. And I can't. Nothing's coming up.
So I'm going Harry Potter themed here, but would you consider using the polyjuice potion as a body switching trope?
Kind of.
Because you drink the potion.
Yeah.
There's hair in it, and you become the person for like an hour.
Yeah, and
you're technically body switching.
Yeah, there's that whole moment in Chamber of Secrets where Harry and Ron, to find out information, literally get rid of the 2 physical bodies that are supposed to be meeting Draco and become them so that they can. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's one of the ways that body switching can be rather interesting and fun.
Also, MHA.
Oh,
Himiko, also body switching. Her whole character trope
is body switching. Yeah, that's
switching.
true. That's her whole power. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay, that's fair. There you go. Yeah. So I knew I loved body switching. I just couldn't think of anything. It's also a comic stock thing in comic books. Like, it's a trope. It's a trope because of comic books.
Nobody saw that, but it was pretty funny.
I threw it at Grant and he missed. Just kidding. I missed. It fell on the floor.
Ooh, this is a very fun one.
Ooh.
Oh, no.
Breaking the fourth wall.
All
right. So breaking the fourth wall is a term I believe started on this with the stage.
Yes.
Because like you would have the 3 imaginary walls on the stage, like stage right, stage left, and backstage or whatever.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then breaking the fourth wall, would be the audience. So you are bringing attention to the artificiality of the play itself in some way. Either, like a character would say, they would acknowledge that they're in a play or a movie or a book or something about the story itself would bring attention to the fact that you're reading a story or something.
Do you have a favorite example?
A favorite example? I'll give you a example.
You can give a example. Yeah, sorry, I don't know why I asked favorites.
No, on the spot I can't think of much. So I'm going to say The Holy Mountain. Which ends with the entire how do I explain this? So the entire second half of the movie, this group of people who have gathered, they're kind of representatives of a bunch of different stuff. So then they're traveling to the Holy Mountain. And at the very end of the movie, which I kind of have a problem with because I think they kind of just ran out of money. So, but literally it zooms out, and then Alejandro Jodorowsky, the director, who also plays a character, he's like giving this grand speech. Yes, blah, 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 blah. It zooms out, and then you see the whole film crew and everything. It's like, oh, it's all magical. It's the magic of cinema. Oh yes,
Wow.
I'll give you a modern
That's
breaking the fourth wall trope.
fascinating.
Yes. Modern breaking the fourth wall trope. The Office.
Is it though? Because
yes.
Okay.
No, so I'm gonna take it a step. Just give me a minute.
Yeah,
just
I think you're right.
To cook.
Okay.
So there's the moments where they're literally sitting in the,
interview space.
No, not in the interview space.
Okay.
I'm talking about in the regular scene.
Oh, in the yes.
This is the trope. The Office stare. You stare in the camera like you're on The Office.
Yes.
That is technically breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
Because the way that they're staring off is not technically at a camera. They're staring at you. As in, do you see this?
They're aware.
Do you see this? They're aware of the fourth wall. They're aware of you as the audience.
And they never make it clear whether or not they know they're being filmed, but you kind of assume it anyway because of the interview portions that happen in between
Exactly.
them. Because why else would they be staring directly at what you assume would be a blank space in their office? Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because you have like Pam and Jim. People Magazine, sexiest man alive, everybody. Anyway.
Okay.
Sorry, don't get me started. So, yeah, you have the moments where Pam and Jim are staring at each other, and that's obvious. But then you have the other moments where, like Aaron was saying, like they stare literally at the camera, and all of the characters do it at different points.
So that's a modern example of breaking the fourth wall. It's so subtle that, like, if you're not paying attention to the way that the show is set up, or, like, at least the different tropes that could come from it, you wouldn't know the difference. You would just think, oh, that because it's an interview-style show, they're staring at whoever's giving interviews or filming them in the office. But because you have that option of the way that the skits work, breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, I didn't think about it. Yeah, that's true. I still don't know if
See, you just had to let me cook for a minute.
Because in comics, Deadpool in the comics is a fourth wall breaker.
Yes.
I would say, as far as the first film goes, he is not a fourth wall.
As a fan fiction trope, they lean really heavily into Deadpool breaking.
Oh, I'm sure they do, because it's common for him to do that in the comics. That's a very, very common thing in the comics. I don't think they achieved that in the first film so much. He really is just a voiceover character, which is not the same as breaking the fourth wall. But that's,
Throw me one.
I think it can be, though.
Just kidding. Don't
it can be. No, I think you're right. I think it can be, but you have, yeah.
Keeping a trophy. So, I actually had to look at this one earlier.
Like
so this
serial
is a
killer?
This is a trope. This is a trope, and Grant is actually correct.
Yes.
Wow.
So this is in like murder mysteries or thrillers or in a modern example of horror, Criminal Minds, for example, where basically the killer or whoever did it will keep a trophy of their victim. And that's, something you see in a lot of the murder mystery shows. You see this in NCIS, you see this in CSI, you see this in Criminal Minds, any type of criminal show.
It's probably more common in police procedurals than detective stories, I would think. But
it's like you keep
keepsakes of
whoever you've taken or whoever you've murdered or something like that. It is a trope
like
that
a
exists.
demitasse saucer of eyeballs.
Yeah.
That was a very specific example.
It
I think it was a joke from Frasier, actually. But anyway.
But you keep it, and it's like a whole entire thing. And for a minute when I was writing these, I was like, is it really? But then I thought about it, and I had to go, it is a trope because it occurs so frequently.
I wonder how many Stephen King, monsters have...
Yes.
Yeah, right? Like, I'm sure there's probably, a whole 10-book thing where he just wrote that same trope.
I'm sure the character from Misery has some stuff.
Oh, yeah, technically he is the trophy in Misery.
I don't know what it is.
Oh, hey, look! Forced proximity! Okay, I'm going to use Red, White, and Royal Blue, the movie. Again, I have not read the book, so I don't know if this is true of the book or not. But in the movie adaptation, which Casey McChristen themselves wrote the screenplay for, the forced proximity trope is the second trope to be introduced with the enemies to lovers trope in that movie, which is, so after you meet them for the first time and the meet cute happens, which is basically a giant cake falls on top of them both because they're wrestling in front of it like a couple of goons. And they are now forced, because it was at a royal event, to do damage control together. So these two young men who already hate each other now have to, according to the government of both of their parents, do all of these public appearances, and they have to pretend as though they have been long-time good friends.
I feel like I know what
who had a disagreement, and that's why the cake fell, or whatever. So that's forced proximity, basically, and it's another romance. It is most commonly, again, associated with romance. It is something that is common in a lot of stories. So you can put heroes and villains together in the same thing, and you have to force them to do whatever. You see it a lot in My Hero, where Bakugo and Midoriya
Mizuku.
are put on the same team because they hate each other, and you know.
I feel like I know what Grant's is, and if he doesn't get it, I got it, so it's fine.
Cool.
Let's see. I would also mention the SpongeBob episode where Mr. Krabs and Plankton team up together.
Yes, exactly. Yes. That is a force proximity plot. Yeah.
Ooh, unlikable victim. I like this.
That's a trope?
Yeah, I mean, it
It
happens.
is a
but
common trope in
I wouldn't-
thrillers and mysteries.
I wouldn't
specifically
think of that.
cozy mysteries.
Oh, really?
That's fascinating.
Well, I mean, so I'll go ahead. My definition would be, it's pretty self-explanatory. A victim of a murder or an unfortunate circumstance or something in a work of fiction that does not elicit sympathy from the reader because
Actually,
they're a trash person.
Pretty much. In cozy mysteries, it's it turns around where, like cozy mysteries, because it's like a whole entire thing. I run a bookshop. Somebody's died near my bookshop. The person who died is generally unlikable by the public.
Oh, I see.
So they're generally an unlikable person in the community. And so not a lot of people are into figuring out who the murderer was or things like that.
So it's up
But
to the-
because your cozy mystery person who owns the bookshop is like, they died in my bookshop now, I gotta Nancy Drew myself and figure it out,
It's also a classic example of that would be Murder on the Orient Express. Because the guy who was murdered, every person on the train has a good reason for murdering him because he's a trash human being. Which is why I find it really funny that Johnny Depp played that character when he was going through his whole thing with, his ex-wife. Yeah, that was just starting to heat up, and
So I'm just
he
gonna
got cast in
pull a
that
few
role.
more.
That was funny.
So just to do them in general.
Also, Death on the Nile
Yes.
has that too. So Agatha Christie used that quite a lot. So that's interesting.
So Marriage of Convenience. We see this a lot in historical romances.
Yeah. Yes.
Billionaire romances.
Yes.
Just romance in general, basically.
You know what's weird? Where you don't see it as much as you think that you should.
Fantasy.
Romanticy.
Yeah. It should.
I
I think it's getting bigger.
It's probably in because I think a lot of
It works with the fated mate trope.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
that's fair.
So Marriage of
Yeah.
Convenience is basically like, oh my god, either something is happening in my kingdom, it could be for politics, it could be paired with forced proximity, because like we're in the same room and I need somebody to marry me right this very second for my trust fund, like things like that. You see this happening a lot. You see it with, it's in here somewhere, but the fated mates trope also has Marriage of Convenience in there, because if we don't get married, we're going to die, so therefore we need to get married, so that way we can stay near each other. Things like that.
Yeah.
Marriage of Convenience.
Yes.
Happens like 10 times in the Dune series.
Oh, I bet.
So
I could imagine. It's how one
this one I
forges an empire.
specifically picked so I could do the meme, but aliens. As a trope. Science fiction trope.
Yeah.
Just aliens in general.
Yeah.
Aliens.
I feel like that's one of those things
I feel like
that
that
has
one's
become so less of a trope now because it's not about the fact that you have aliens in your story, it's how you utilize the aliens in the story. Whereas, back in the day, you either had aliens or robots, or, you could have anything in sci-fi to make it sci-fi, but,
And it's interesting you bring that up because a trope, when it's new, it can seem like something revolutionary, but in time it will just become another trope, part of the larger structure of storytelling.
Yeah, that's true.
So I will say, this one is really funny, and I have a really hilarious little reference to this trope that I don't think I think it'll be funny when
Did you
mention
mean
it.
to do 3 in a row, by the way?
I'm just doing them out loud now because we have 10 minutes left.
Oh, that's fair. Go ahead.
Finagle's Law. Now,
I've heard that, but I don't know what it is.
so Finagle's Law is not to be mixed up with Murphy's Law. Finagle's Law is basically anything that can or will go wrong, will go wrong.
Oh.
That is Finagle's Law. And my random thing, which makes hilarious and little sense to most people, is my example is the Magic School Bus.
Yeah.
Because there's one kid and he's like, oh my god, it's gonna go so wrong, and everyone's like, what the frizz? No way! But guess what? Something goes wrong.
Well, and I would say that particular trope is used more in television than anywhere else, because how else do you string people along for 5 seasons of The Flash? Well, more than 5 seasons, but for however many seasons of The Flash, is in every single episode,
Yep.
everything that could go wrong.
CW's The Flash is like nightmare.
Yeah, is going to go wrong, and then you have a kind of a save at the end, and then the next episode, something else has to. It's a constant sort of.
It's what Stephen King said propels his stories. Like, he thinks, what is the absolute worst thing that can happen in this particular situation?
I would say Hitchcock probably is one of the reasons that so many people in the storytelling world of the post Hitchcock storytelling world know and use that so much, because he was, that's what suspense is, really, is that something like that. Yeah. Oh, fake relationship. Those are fun to read when you get a chance. Those are really fun. So, again,
Some of my favorite fan fictions are fake relationships. I read this one where it was Izuku and Bakugo, and they're both pro heroes, and they're at a interview at the moment, and like a street interview, like they just finished a fight or whatever.
Yeah.
And so the person just keeps, I don't remember, I think it's Bakugo, that they just keep like pushing and pushing and pushing, and Izuku just walks in and just goes, yeah, hey babe, let's get going, and then they leave. So there's that fake relationship one.
That's cute.
The fake relationships with coworkers when people hit on people at the front desk.
Oh, jeez. Not real examples.
Oh, yeah.
Fictional
Sorry, I
ones.
forgot.
So fake relationships are really fun because, like, for example, in sitcoms, you use fake relationship all the time because one of the core tenets of comedy is you put 3 people in a room. 2 people know what's going on. 1 person thinks they know what's going on, but the 2 people are telling the truth to each other but lying to the other person, and the other person has no idea that they're lying, but the audience knows everything.
Yes.
And so it makes the situation naturally more comedic than it would be if all 3 of those people went in and sat down and had a meeting together, and knew everything. Love triangles. Full disclosure.
Do you love triangles?
Guilty pleasure. Absolutely love triangles. I can never get enough love triangles. Every time that came up in the post-Twilight team era where everyone was like team this or team that, I literally would be so angry at people because they would be like, I'm so tired of love triangles. And I'm like, you calm down, Team Edward. Your character won, didn't they? Yeah, that's what I thought. And even though I'm Team PETA, I was expressly Team Gale for a long time just because people were like, she has to be with PETA. He's the best thing for her. And I'm just like, yeah, this is why I don't play team games with you people, because you don't understand love triangles. She likes them both. Anyway, don't get me started.
So I will say, I found
the
one that I was mentioning earlier while we were talking about enemies to lovers.
Yes.
Rivals to lovers.
Oh,
There's a
sure.
difference.
There is a difference.
So
yes.
enemies to lovers, and I will wax poetic about this forever and ever. As much as people keep telling us that, so Fourth Wing, they're like, oh yeah, it's enemies to lovers. It's not. Because they are not explicitly enemies. They are not on opposite sides of the war. They are on the exact same team. They are rivals to lovers.
Yeah.
It's a difference. Rivals to lovers is, for example, so I'm going to put this in fanfiction tropes because I have to, because that's the only way I can explain this.
Sure.
So enemies to lovers is for example, you have 2 people on the very opposite sides of a war. And they hate each other, and it's a big bad thing. So if anybody's played Baldur's Gate 3, it's, the big bad Mind Flayers versus your guys's, because you can romance the enemy, by the way. It's a whole entire thing. So, that is specifically enemies to lovers romance, right? Mm-hmm. Rivals to lovers in fanfiction trope is where you would have your Bakugo and Izuku shit because they are rivals. They are in the same area. They're technically on the same team, but they want to be better than the other person. There's a lot of anime that does rivals to lovers where it's he is super smart and she's super smart, and she's thinking that because he's super smart, she's I need to be better, and so you have technically Draco and Harry, if you think of them as a ship, they are also rivals to lovers.
It would be rivals, not enemies.
Not enemies.
Well, at least not until he becomes a Death Eater.
Not until the 6th book, and then it depends on how you take it. It's
if Draco's a Death Eater, then that means he's the enemy, and if they're in love with each other, that's enemies to lovers.
Exactly. There's a difference, and I want people to know that there's a difference, and I will flip every single table.
For example, Dumbledore and Grindelwald beat before, like when they're in the
Before the war,
before the war,
rivals
they
to
are
lovers.
rivals to lovers because I mean they agree on a lot of things.
Yes.
They do disagree about methodology before it gets bad, and then of course when the war happens, they are strictly enemies to not even lovers. they're lovers to enemies at that point. I don't know.
So I'm going to use this last trope to tell everyone that these will be used for the fanfiction episode later. However, this is also a dramatic reveal for this is actually the end of the episode. Which is also a trope where the villain turns around and waxes poetic.
The dramatic reveal is my least favorite trope of all time.
You would not consider a dramatic reveal?
Yeah, if I have a dramatic reveal happening in a story, I get violently angry because I'm like, you could have handled this so much because no one knows how to handle it. I don't know if it's possible to handle it well. Maybe it is. Tell me.
Watchmen. Ozymandias. The end.
You know what?
It's kind of a subverted version of that
I
trope,
think that's the worst part of Watchmen. Everything else works. That's the only part that doesn't
Actually,
work.
I'll give you a
But that's just me.
I'll give you
I
a
get it.
fun dramatic reveal. Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb, whenever he reveals to Perry the Platypus his horrible invention.
Well, yeah, that's true. Any villain speech is a dramatic reveal. That's true. And then, of course, there's things like Rings of Power, right? Where Sauron reveals himself to be Sauron at the end of it.
And you're like, duh!
You know, could have figured that part out.
No, we're going to use these in the fanfiction episode so you guys can grill